The eldest of them.
Okay.
I start with you because you're the one that's the least serious.
The least serious.
Too much reflection on Fred's head?
Shall we pot it out now a little bit?
Okay, are you ready? Are you going to go first? Going to introduce? You know what? Well, I'll start.
Go
Just
left or right,
just
either
pat it,
way.
yeah.
doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
Okay. All right. You're on.
My name is Fred Haderman, graduating class, Benicia High School, 1961.
Jim Wilson, graduated Benicia High, 1962.
Jim Garrett, graduated Benicia High, 1961.
I am John Galvan. I graduated from Benicia High in 1957.
I'm Mike Connell, graduated in 1961.
Okay, you guys are on. Who's starting?
All right.
Are we finished?
We're finished.
Is it rolling?
We're rolling.
Well, one of my first thoughts about Sanborn Field was being in the 8th grade, and John Galvan, an old friend of mine from my neighborhood in West Manor, taught me how to sneak in through the bleachers, the baseball field down there, and so that's my first recollection of Sanborn Field. And we'd wait under the bleachers, and when the game started, we'd crawl out and go join the game.
My recollection is even earlier than that. I grew up on East 3rd Street, right next to the field. And Sanborn Field was actually more of a playground for us. We would sneak in. We'd play like Army in the bleachers, hiding under the bleachers. We'd go out in the field and play tackle the man with the ball, football, every kind of sport. And only occasionally would we get run off. I think maybe when they were watering, sometimes they got a little anxious, but the rest of the time they just let us run. And some of my memories of that, I do remember the principal of the high school, a fellow named Heyman, and he had an office that looked down on the field. And I remember that we would be out there playing, we would jump the fence, we'd go in through the hole, we'd jump over this one gate, climb over this gate. We weren't supposed to be there, and he would sit up there and watch us. And there was always a certain amount of fear, because he was a very large man. And but I think now that I've gotten a little older, I think he was probably looking out the window and maybe not having terrible thoughts, maybe thinking those kids are having a lot of fun. I wish I was that young. I wish I didn't have paperwork. I don't know. But we used to see him up there watching us, and we were very a little apprehensive about that. I do remember that.
My first memory of Sanborn Field was when we lived on 26 Larkin Drive, the old Larkin Drive here in Benicia. It's the hill just east of 5th Street here. And I was telling Fred about this earlier. One Friday night, for whatever reason, I and my dad were up on top of the hill and looking down, and you see this postage stamp rectangular thing all lit up downtown and all dark all around it. It was Sanborn Field. And it was really neat because I'd never gone to a football game in my life, and then I see that thing and I still remember it.
Well, my first recollection, probably sometime in the 40s, I moved to Benicia in 1946 when I was just 7 years old, and Sanborn Field was a place where the old Benicia Bombers softball team used to play a lot, and they were probably one of the top 5 softball teams in all of California. And Mello was their coach, and they dressed in black, and they had some pretty darn good ball players. And I remember going down with my dad and watching their games at night. They always played their games at night during the week, and so that was a good pastime, especially before television.
My first recollection was we used to live in Cartagena by West Manor, and we used to walk down to the elementary school. We were in the 5th, 6th grade. We used to always walk past Sanborn. It was right next to the school. And we'd always look at it, and I always thought, well, I'd sure love to play on this field, play football one day, but I love playing baseball there. We used to always come downtown and play baseball there. It was always a good field. But then I used to look at some of the fellows that were playing football out there in practice after school, and I said, oh, it's too big, I won't play here. I would never get a chance to play on this field. But we used to sneak in too, like Fred, and Friday nights we'd come down to the game and stuff and sneak in and stuff. But also my favorite thing, I thought Benicia, we had real good fans. Most of all of our games, we had good fan support. You know, I was always glad to come walking out of, glad we would call coming through up the asphalt out of the locker room, and you look at the fans on both sides. Our fans always outnumbered the visitors. The visitors most of the time had to stand because our fans would sit up in the seats and stuff, and we had them lined up on the side. And that to me was a big thrill coming out there, looking at both sides. Then boom, I just take off running and just thinking, oh, I should hope I can have a good day today. I get all these people cheering, and then I'd be looking for the cameraman, whoever was walking down at Benicia, a Herald guy on one side and the Blair Times Herald guy on the other side of the field with their little flash cameras, and always looking for them when I'd run the ball, just hoping I'd get my picture in the paper, you know. But it was good times, and we used to come play, you know, like I said, come downtown and get holding some of the neighborhood guys, and we'd all have good baseball games and play flag football out there. And I still think about that. Those are good times. When I think about them, I smile, and my kids don't understand. They say, why are you smiling about it? I said, because those were the good old days. People talk about the good old days, and they were. And it was just like, to me, like yesterday, you know. And I brought my kids down to show them where I played, my grandkids where, you know, I played. And when they moved the baseball field over to the other field from Sanborn, I didn't like it, the other field, but Sanborn was just, it was like history to be there, to play on that field, you know.
Exactly.
In the 4 years, I really enjoyed playing there.
Now
Sanborn.
tell me exactly where Sanborn is. Sorry, were you gonna kind of?
It's where the post office is now.
Okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sanborn, in a way, was like the heart of Benicia, because we didn't have that much as a community. We would have, for instance, the Holy Ghost Parade once a year, and for a couple of years in the early 50s, they had the 49ers celebration where people would have to grow beards and everything, and it was kind of a community thing. But other than that, Sanborn Field, about 5 or 6 times each fall, was the heart of Benicia. It was excitement. There were lights, there was music, there was sound, there was excitement, there was people, and to me, it always has symbolized the heart of Benicia.
Something that goes right along with that is we had more fans watching us, and I've said this to guys down through the years, us here, we had more fans watching us in 4 years, or in 1 year rather, than guys that play out that high school now have watched them in 1 year. I mean, they do.
Well, we were Gotel and Corrigan had a,
Tell them who Gotel and Corrigan are.
Bill Gotel was the backfield coach, and Barney Corrigan was the line coach. And
Quote marks around those two.
And those two guys just year after year after year had winning teams, and the fans knew it, and the fans came to watch us play, watch us win, and the student body. I mean, the student body was there. I mean, it was a place to go on Saturday, and then you had the dance after the game. You know,
Oh, the dances.
but Jimmy brought something up on. During the day, you know, like in the summertime, we'd go over the fence, we'd jump the fence and play football.
Yep.
And then we played baseball, you know, and
We didn't have computers.
yeah, we
No,
didn't have
we didn't have
computers.
it.
We didn't have
Outside
television,
of the
really.
No.
Yeah, we didn't have television in the early 50s.
We didn't have a lot of real good baseballs either.
No, yeah. And so that was fun. It was Sanborn was fun in the summertime as well as in the fall. And
You were talking about the fans, and I have a recollection when we were playing football, varsity. I played the interior line, and normally I was pretty confident nobody was ever paying any attention to me. The coaches maybe, but as far as the fans go, no, not really. Except at the far end of the field, when we were down near the end zone next to the school, there was always a group of guys who would line up against this little railing, and they were just 5 yards on the other side of the end zone, and they were almost, well, they weren't close enough to touch, but it was very close. And I knew that those guys, these were true football fans. They were, in fact, they were guys like John, who had graduated a few years earlier, you know. And I think the Lemus brothers, there was a number of people
and
who would
Brooks
be there.
yeah.
And I knew they were watching me. I always played harder, whether it was offense or defense, a goal line stand or trying to make a touchdown. I always played harder because I knew those guys were standing there watching us on the interior line.
Yeah.
Well, something that we all had in common, we talked about, some of us here before, was the sound of coming out of the locker room and your cleats. You're all coming out in single file, like 30 guys, and the sound of the cleats on the asphalt. And then there's somebody waiting out there, and so they're coming. and you hit the turf, and the sound changes. The fans start applauding, and you're in this spotlight. It was just neat feeling.
Yeah.
You
And the
have to
smell of
remember,
cut
too,
grass, smell
I
that.
was just
shit.
gonna say that Sanborn Field was our best 12th man. Because
Oh, yeah.
playing at home, we had the best home field advantage of any other field, of any other school that I knew of that played against us. First of all, it had a slant, about
Yep.
6 degrees it seemed like, from near the school down to the baseball area, and with the wind blowing that way. So if we ever were going uphill, as it were, towards the school building, better had never punt, because if you tried to kick the ball on 4th down, the ball would more likely sail back over your head for the prevailing wind. So always, no matter what happened, this is where the strategy of Coach Gotel came in, is that you always wanted to make sure you were going down away from the building in the 4th quarter. That gave you a tremendous advantage, field-wise, wind-wise, and then it also just really beat into the head of the defense that now they, when they were tired, had to trudge uphill to try to score. So Sanborn Field was our best 12th man. Probably should have been an all-star. If not, in my mind, it was.
Yeah.
And that's the strategy we had.
I never realized the field wasn't level.
I didn't either. I didn't know that. Where John was a coach at the high school at one time too, so he knows all that kind
Yeah,
of
and
stuff.
you never want to throw a ball. If you're going uphill, you never want to throw a pass as you're going towards the building, towards the bent barn, because if that wind would blow it into the stands. That's how strong that wind was coming through that little chute.
Well, Jimmy Wilson ran 84 yards uphill for a touchdown one time on that field.
Yeah.
Charles Kemble made the first block, he made the last block. Great play.
Talk about a memorable moment when I was coaching. I had the JV team that one year, and you remember Major Jordan and,
Oh, yeah.
and Ronnie Jordan and Jim Pruitt, my little pony backfield. Well, the quarterback at the time was none other than little Johnny Nunes, and none of them, I think, more than 5'4" or 5'5" in those days, the JV team. And those are the days when we were playing at Sanborn, but the high school is where it is located today. So both teams would get dressed up at the Benicia High School, then come down on a bus to the field. Well, we were playing St. Patrick's. By that time, it was known as St. Patrick's in those days. Maybe, yeah, it was about St. Patrick's. No, St. Vincent's. It was still St. Vincent's. And Dietz Carr was their coach. You guys all
He got
Dietz,
around.
yeah.
He got around.
Yeah, he was their coach, and what he had done, and we had to walk out through their locker room to get on the bus to come on down, and he had put up his defensive scheme on the board. So we looked at it. That's on the way out. And one of the things that we did on the way down was we always, on the way down, got a hold of the quarterback and the backfield guys and determined what that first play was going to be. You always had that first play, a la Gotel. And so, anyway, we lost the toss. They decided to take the field as opposed to it. So they kicked off to us, and we were going to go uphill in that first quarter, which is all right with us. And so they had stacked us because we had a really good running team with Major and Ronnie and Jim Pruitt. Those guys were little scatbacks. They could have been a relay team in track. That's how good they were. And so we decided to say, well, all we got, they're begging us to pass because they're putting everybody up on the line. And so, to make the long story short, we decided to run right into the teeth of their defense and just try to break them on the first play. And little Calameros, I can't remember his first name now, but he was the right guard, did a little trap play. And Major Jordan took the ball from Johnny Nunes, and he went straight up the middle. He was 15, 18 yards down the field before anybody knew who he was, and he went about 75 yards for a touchdown, going straight up the chute. And by the way, he had time to look around to see where those cameramen were too.
1 or 2 years after our senior year, talking about the fast backfield, and at least 3 of them were on a relay team. I don't remember it was Freddie Smith, whoever it was, but I was talking to Goodell, he said, we scored too fast. You know, he said, because they were so fast, he'd give them a pitch, and the guy'd score, and they're back on defense again. He said, that's why they lost some of their games, because they scored so fast.
Yeah, had some good teams.
Some real good teams. Our junior year, we lost 1 game. We were playing Rio Vista. I was the quarterback, and we were going down the field. We were going towards the school, like John was saying. and I threw this flat pass. This guy come out of nowhere in the backfield, picked it off and ran about 70 yards for a score, and we lost by a touchdown.
Yeah, but the part he's not saying is right at the last, he brought us back in the closing seconds. He threw 2 passes in the end zone that 2 different guys dropped. We could have tied the game. But wasn't meant to be. But Fred, in 2 years on the varsity, quarterback, defensive back, he was in 9 wins out of 10 games on that field. The only loss was that one he's just talking about. Mike and me, 12 out of 15 games on that field we won. It, like John was saying, there's a whole lot to do about the field, the home advantage of that field, the crowd. And you knew that you were going to win. There wasn't yelling and rah-rah and all that stuff at all. You just went out and you looked at the guys, okay, what's the play? Let's go. We're going to win.
Yeah. You know, going back to the fans, the fans were also standing next to the sidelines.
Yeah.
I mean, they were up in the stands, but the fans were also standing on the sideline. I mean, it was packed. It was just truly packed all the way around. It
On
was
both sides of
it
the
was a
field. In
treat.
fact, what's probably little known, my parents, they never missed a game from the time that I was in high school and beyond. They became so enamored of the sport. Friday night was the place to go. They always sat on the opposite side, and they weren't alone as far as
Yeah.
the Benicia folks were concerned. At least half of the opposing stands were filled up by fans of Benicia. The parents, they'd let the kids get in the stands, and that's Freddie's stand. Both sides of the field. Now, when we went to the high school to play at the high school, the fans were set further back on both sides, because there was a track in between, and they still had the rope there to keep the people from getting on the sidelines. But the people were so used to being on the sidelines at Sanborn Field, they continued to stand on the sidelines, and the field and the stands were not quite full because everybody's out standing up and down from the 20 to the 20.
Yeah.
People would run
And then in
behind
the
the-
end zone, same way.
People would run behind the bleachers from one end of the field to the other, change the coordinates.
Oh, yeah.
But the Benicia had a population then of about 6,000, and our senior year we played St. Vincent's and lost them for the first time in 13 years. We played them at Corbus Field, and there were 6,000 fans there. And they ended last game of the season. We played Vacaville in the mud on Veterans Day, and it was there were 5,000 people there. And we had a town of 6,000 people. People followed us because we were good. We were a good team, good program, good
And
program.
that Vacaville game had been postponed once because it was raining so hard. Actually played on a Monday,
On a Saturday.
on a Saturday. It was Saturday, I thought it was Monday. But anyway, it was raining really hard that game
Yeah.
too. And not only was the mud, the official there was so much water on the field, official had to hold the ball down so that just when the center got up to get the ball, he wouldn't be floating away on it. So.
John was talking earlier about officials before you got here, and that's something else about the whole feeling around here. A number of guys they coached, I mean, they officiated year after year, and they did it in all the sports. And so you got to know them, you know, stuff like that. They didn't give you any breaks, especially, but you got to know them.
Our
That's
junior-
that's why they almost kicked you out of the game. 'Cause you
Yes,
knew it.
yes. They almost kicked, Stan McWilliams almost kicked me out of a game my senior year. He plays over and he comes up and says, "You do that one more time, number 30, I'm gonna kick you out of the game." I still to this day am not positive what it was that he thinks I did.
I know what it was. You missed a block.
He was a ref.
They'd probably play as well without you as they did with you on that morning.
We was our junior year. We were playing St. Vincent's. We were ahead 13-12 in the fourth quarter, and Dean Croney was the quarterback, and Dean got hurt. So Gotel sends me in there, and he says, "All right, you will not pass the ball, and you will not hand it off." He said, "You just keep that ball," because we're only a few seconds left in the game, and
I got a story from that game, which was, probably shouldn't tell it because it's so embarrassing, but I basically played between the guard and the center, and there had been a whole series of plays where they were making about 5 or 6 yards, and I thought it was a pass over the middle. I couldn't see. My eyes were 2,500. If you can read the big E and that's it, that's 2,400. So that's how blind I was. And that's why I was in the middle of the line. And so the coach pulls me out and he says, "Connell, do you know what they're running?" And I said, "Well, I think they're throwing a short pass over the middle." And he says, "No, it's a draw play right past you. The quarterback is giving it to the fullback." And so the next play, sure enough, I'm watching the fullback, and the little bugger's got the ball. And I creamed him for about a 4-yard loss. And they didn't do that again. But they were running right by me, and I didn't even know it.
I asked Mike one time, how does he know who to block? And he says the color. You know, I go with color.
Oh, yeah.
But in that game he's talking about there, St. Vincent's had 5 downs, had a series of 5 downs. And Gotel and Corrigan and Drillette was saying, no, it's too many downs. But they love to have the 5th down there.
We were, I don't know who we were playing, but we had just scored a touchdown. And Jimmy was the halfback, and I was playing quarterback. I says, okay, what's Statue of Liberty? This is for a point after. And so we went back, and Statue of Liberty, Jimmy gets it, and he runs it in. The fans went nuts. They were just applauding everything. I go back there, happy as I'll get out, and Gotel says, you never want to have one of those plays, because those are gimmick plays, and those are the ones that we'll play when we play a conference team. We never did play that one, use that play again, but boy, the fans went nuts on that one. It worked beautifully.
Talking about that type of play and Gotel's cerebralism on the stuff. He ran an end around our senior year one time to Steve Flick, 75 yards for a touchdown. The only time all year ran an end around. The quarterback just turns and gives to the guy coming by like this, and the guy spins around left end and was straight down the field. And Flick was a hurdler in track. He was a multi-talented athlete. He just got around the corner and just took off. And it was kind of like whatever. He's a smart coach. Corrigan's a smart coach.
Well,
Yeah.
Sometimes Phil Gotel outsmarted himself.
Yep.
I can remember, I must have been a freshman when the Benicia High School had its first undefeated team on the field. And you had Bob Hathaway and Harry Shoup and Al Borteaser and 1953 season. And they had a play. They're playing T formation then. They had a play what they called a 20 counter pass. And so the 20 counter basically was when you hand off to the fullback. You hand off to the fullback. You fake to the fullback. You have to hand off the halfback in the line. Then the 20 counter pass, when you fake to both those guys, left end go down, sneak down somewhere in the middle, and throw a pass to him. Well, Bob Hathaway, he called that play. Bob Hathaway was so good at what he did. Fake, threw the pass, guy went in for a touchdown, but there was no touchdown. Why? The official was so fooled on the fake, they blew the whistle and they had to bring the ball back up. Inadvertent whistle, TD gone. And that's how he outsmarted. One other time he outsmarted himself too, but this wasn't at a home game, but it was at Lincoln. And Freddie he did a lot of mopping up in those games when Benicia was getting so far ahead. And so anyway, he was getting toward the end of the game, and Phil again, like I said, don't pass it, don't hand it off, keep it. So he called timeout and gave Freddie give these orders. Says, okay, I want you to get the ball, do a running play on the line. So Freddie says, there's only a few more plays, a few more seconds left. So yeah, says we want to run out the clock. So Freddie said, I'll figure out how to run out the clock. So he calls a play, and he says, on 25 or 30, I don't know what someone got his number. So he goes, ready, set, 1, 2, 3. Flag goes up, delay a game.
I remember that.
What are you talking about? It was timeout, Fred. The clock wasn't running in the first place. So then he learned his lesson on that one. Coach can outsmart himself. It depends on who he's talking to.
Yeah.
Remember that?
I remember that.
Yep.
I have a recollection back to the field and the fans. We didn't have a lot of money back in the early 50s, and my father was a big sports nut. And every Friday night, and this was before I was in high school, I was just a kid, he would walk up and stand outside, wouldn't pay the 25 cents to get inside for the game, but he and a couple of guys would stand outside on 3rd Street and watch through the fence, which makes sense until you realize he couldn't see anything. 3rd Street was at a slope down, and if you were fairly tall, you could probably see the tops of the players if they were somewhere in the first 10 yards or so. But after that, they couldn't see anything. But every game, he and his friends would just sit there or stand there and listen to the game. And I think you have to realize, I suppose, that this was a group of men who had grown up listening to sports. They had, grown up in the 30s and the 40s listening to radio before TV, and so it was perfectly natural for them to just sit there and listen to a game and have a little chat.
So,
but they were an institution at that end of the.
Mike's talking about listening because we had an announcer that would announce what play was being and who ran the ball or who caught it or what have you. So there was a loudspeaker, so you
Right.
could follow it, yeah. There was a time when I was in the 8th grade after I had snuck into the game. Roland Van Bleriken was the quarterback. And he comes off, he's running off to the left side, and I don't know how it happened, but the ball flew up in the air, went straight up in the
I
air.
remember that. It was against,
Roland comes
that was
off, running
against
all the way
St.
around,
Vincent,
catches it, and takes off and scores the touchdown.
That was against St. Vincent.
What happened on that?
He went around right in, and and the ball just slipped out of his hand. It hit the heel of the guy that was blocking for him, and bounced right back up to him.
Is that
By this time, everybody had gone over this way, so he just swung around the left side. And that was the night he scored 6 touchdowns on his 17th birthday.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
I read that Gattel said in one of those follow-up things years later that either his junior or senior year he led Northern California in scoring or rushing or both, something like that.
He was his senior year. He led the Northern California in rushing, in yards per carry, and in passing for a while. Not at the end of the season, because we ended up actually running more than we ended up passing. But the offense that we had at the time was basically a single wing spread, and it looked like a passing offense, but it was really a running offense. And he took advantage of we were small. In fact, Mike would have been the biggest guy on our team. Our heaviest guy was 175 pounds. That was Dick Garrett. And that was the biggest guy we had on our team. In our backfield, 135 was Roland. I was 145. Larry Rich was 160, and he was the biggest guy. And that was about it. And so, and the line was actually faster than some of us in the backfield, but they were just a little bit bigger, so they became the linemen. We became the backs. And as I was saying earlier, that one of the reasons that I went out for backfield, I saw how hard that Barney Corrigan was working out the linemen. So I said that was too much work for me to be playing football. So that's how I became a
Funny you
back.
mentioned the size, because a few years later, when we played our 1960 championship season, I was 6 foot 200 pounds, and I was the smallest guy, weight size, tackle to tackle. The other tackle, 2 guards in the center, were all bigger than me. And yet, at 6 foot 200 pounds in years past, I would have been gigantic.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
The big man 2 years earlier was Dave Heyman at 180 pounds.
Yeah, and
he was a big guy.
And he was about 170. He played on our team too.
Yeah.
But two things that happened overall in the program, we always had fast teams, quick teams, and fast teams. And something else, everybody who was out there played. I've gone to a lot of games at this high school down through the years, new high school, where not everybody on the team played. And I'll bet you we could have run up the score 2-3 more touchdowns in a lot of games. But he kept the score down, and everybody got in the game, kept everybody happy, and team thing, kept mom and dad happy. It was a unity thing. I was talking to a kid at the cancer relay thing here this last weekend about the thing and how in those days it was a team thing. There were stars. Kimball's a star, Jimmy's a star, blah blah blah. There were stars, but it was a team concept.
Yeah. We had 11. It wasn't too hard to get everybody in the game with us, because we only had 23 people on our team when I was a senior.
Well, something else that John said to me years ago, you ran the same play so often that it was marked.
Yeah, you could see it in practice. Yeah, we put ruts into the
Yeah.
field.
What was our big play? The sweep right or the
57 dive with Charlie Kimball right behind me.
Yeah.
Well, that was one, but the other one was this big sweep around right.
You had a fly pattern you guys used to run.
Yeah.
But you guys were running back in the T formation then.
Yeah.
We only had 6 plays. 6 to the right, 6 to the. Then we flipped the field. And we had right formation, and had 6 plays.
Yeah.
Left formation, we had the same 6 plays going the other way, and that was it.
Well, that's all that
so
you
much
guys can remember.
repetition.
That's the problem. That's
So
the
much
problem with
repetition.
Phil had.
Do it in your sleep.
I got a question. This is all about Sanborn Field.
Yeah.
I had a doctor named Sanborn when I was growing up. Was that the same Sanborn?
Same yeah, he was a longtime doctor in Benicia. He actually had his office was right on the corner of East 2nd and Military, where Dr. Sanford's became later, and now it's some other thing going on now. But that was Dr. Sanford's office.
Was that Van Buren's office?
Van Buren was a couple doors down.
Oh.
And anyway, he was appointed to the school board, re-elected to the school board, was the team doctor. And I remember, because I knew that I was there when they dedicated the field to him in his honor, and he was the team doctor for a long time, and he did a lot of things. And what I mentioned before was that one of my most, they had a halftime ceremony for him, and they unveiled the Sanborn Field thing But then they put a tackling dummy hung underneath that
Yes,
sign.
Oscar.
And Oscar would kill us every Monday morning, or Monday afternoon practice. But when somebody got hurt, you would think the world was coming to an end, because Dr. Sanborn, in his fedora cap, raincoat, walking very slowly out to the field to see, if the guy was still breathing when he got there, he was probably going to be all right. And then he'd walk back, and that was it, or he'd just say, bring him off the field, or whatever it was. But he was very deliberate in doing that. But apparently, most of his work, as far as being the team doctor, was prior to 1954. He died shortly after, very young when he died. He was only 57 years old.
Oscar, the tackling dummy, hung him with the sign, like John said there, and you'd go up there and tackle the thing, and the coach would tell you to stay low. And Oscar had a body like this, and then he had two legs that were swinging.
Made out of cement, I think.
And if you didn't tackle him low, you tended to hit him right in here. I didn't wear a cup in those days. I don't know if any of you guys did, but
What was that?
you're right. At least one guy didn't wear a cup, and he tackled the thing right here like this. It goes back like this, and he's spread eagle like this, and the two legs come down.
You
Well,
learn
what
to
they
tackle
did
up.
with that Oscar, they'd swing him,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then as he's coming at you, that's when they want you to hit him.
yeah.
That was bad.
He was devastating.
Yeah.
You'd have been all league if you'd played for us in the back.
Yeah.
But Mike and I pushed the two-man blocking sled, which Corrigan loved.
Well, he got to ride it, no wonder he loved it.
That's why I went to the backfield.
Yeah.
I couldn't push it.
I hated that thing.
I didn't.
But it was always kind of a competition, because if you hit it evenly with the guy next to you and you were evenly matched, the sled went back nice and even.
Yep.
But if the other guy was a lot stronger and tougher and faster than you,
It'd
it
work.
angled. And so there was this pressure every time you came up. Who am I with? Oh, I got Freddie on the other side. There's no problem. Well, there's Garrett. Oh, I got to really push this one. Actually, I don't think Freddie ever was on the slide. That was strictly for linemen.
Yeah.
Well, I became an end when I thought I was a lineman freshman year as tackle in JVs like you. Next year, varsity like you, and I think I'm a tackle again. We go out there to practice the first day or whatever, start hitting the sled.
That's just because you can see. I mean, you got no
Until
talent.
says, get over here, Garrett. You're not a lineman. You're a back. I mean, you're an end. And so I immediately became an end. I had no thought, whatever. Just that's something else. You went where you were set to go. I mean, you put you where you thought was best for the team.
It's like Gotel, like Benicia was the winning team. Every year they had a winning team. So my junior year, I played my junior varsity. My junior year, I graduated up to the varsity, and Gotel says, you got to remember that the pride of being even on the football team was something. And Gotel comes up to me and says, well, you're going to be our quarterback. And I'm telling you what, I'm getting the chills right now. I mean, you're going to be a quarterback of the Benicia High School football team. Boy, did that go to my head. And it was an honor, an absolute honor.
Yeah. What people don't remember too, I think a lot, is that a lot of baseball was played on that field.
Yeah.
We all, most of us played baseball, and all of us, I'm sure, played baseball on Sanborn Field.
Yeah.
It was a lucky day for us to be able to play at what is now known as Fitzgerald Field, because in the spring, being dirt as it was often so muddy because of the rains, and also hadn't been built up like it is now. And we didn't have the sewers there to keep everything clean like they did now. And in fact, the old that trailer of the mobile home park out there for the seniors, that was always underwater until about June or July, and so we couldn't play there, especially early in the year. So we always played up there a lot of really pretty good baseball games. Some players that are of note that played on that field, a guy by the name of Dick Bass from Vallejo High School that ended up playing for the Los Angeles Rams in football for many years. There's a couple guys out of Rio Vista that played, made Augie Garrido played.
He's the head coach at Texas now.
He's at the winningest college football baseball coach ever.
Tug McGraw played there too.
Tug McGraw, Hank McGraw all played there, and I remember one time playing an alumni game a year after I came back to play, and Kenny Lewis, and our thoughts should be with him right now. He's not doing so hot, and he happened to be pitching that day, and you talked about hitting Stoner's house. Well, I broke a window, and I bet I blame Kenny. So,
There was another type of baseball that was played there too, that you guys will probably remember when I mentioned it. Back in the 50s, donkey baseball was
Yep.
big. And every couple of years or so, this traveling team was like the Harlem Globetrotters, except they were on donkeys. And they would hit the ball and have to jump on a donkey and race around the bases. And it was hilarious. It was a lot of fun. And they had that a couple of years there
Yeah.
at Sanborn Field too.
And then Sanborn Field, the field was a grass field. And sometimes when that ball hit the dirt or the grass, and you'd be up, coming up to get it, and the ball's going about 60 miles an hour, and it hits a gopher hole. Bam! It jumps up and hits you in the mouth.
Well, you see this little knot right here? Old Barney put that on me in infield practice. I played first base, and first base was right around the 2-yard line. You know, and Barney, I muffed one, and Barney hit the next one a little harder. I muffed it again, and then he hit one really hard. Like you said, it skidded, hit something,
Yeah.
bounced up and popped me right there, and I've still got the old bump right there.
Yeah, I see it.
50 years later, and yeah, that was something pretty much. But I think we'd be remiss if we didn't mention that the first football game that was ever probably played, I mean, official football game was probably played, was not all that long ago when you think about it. Actually, 1937, 1938, and I mentioned Bernesti was a tackle on that first team.
At 175 pounds.
At 175 pounds. And he was bigger than anybody we had on our team in 1956. And anyway, as story goes, is that they finally got permission, got everything going, the school board okayed to have a football team. But we were devoid of uniforms, devoid of equipment, didn't have any of that. But there's a guy by the name of Duncan Graham came to our rescue. He was he went to Cal, was actually a world-class pole vaulter in those days at Cal, and taught science at Benicia High School. And so he had some friends over there, and so he went to Cal, procured the necessary equipment, the necessary uniforms, and brought them to Benicia, outfitted the high school team, and that's how we got our first equipment. And by the way, that's how we also got our colors blue and gold.
There you go.
We were actually, I think, red and white, and they had a thing, and then they had a contest as to how we were going to be named, and so they had a contest amongst the student body, and Panthers won out because they weren't known as Panthers before 1937. It was only after that they actually brought that into play.
We had the ugliest traveling uniforms for the first few years. They were all gold.
I
I
love
like that.
them. They were brand new for me.
Northwestern Stripes has a good-looking
Hideous.
uniform, man.
In our senior year, they replaced it with a white top with 3 stripes on each side, just like LSU, which was a very good team that year.
But it cost you a couple of wins though, because you're not used to playing with those colors.
Cost us the St. Vincent's.
See that gold, that gold color on
That's
the
why we lost
Yes.
St. Vincent's. It was the
Yes.
uniform.
Jake's
And I thought it
gold
was my
color was
lousy
part of the
play.
home field advantage. Yeah.
Right.
You can use that all the time.
Yeah.
Duncan Grandin, was he our algebra teacher?
Yes,
That's
we
right.
had 6th period
Yeah,
algebra
math
freshman
and
year.
science.
He's the one. To pull
He's
that
the
off.
guy.
He had hearing aids.
Class got too loud, he turned it off.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Never flunked anybody.
He's the guy.
Up
He
there,
used
we're
to,
off topic, we're off topic.
we're off topic.
No, I think Duncan Graham was big. He was responsible for the first football
He
team.
used to lick his glasses and clean them. I remember that. He'd give them a big lick and then clean them. Gross.
And he actually coached, I think, Tracker in the early years, because he was that good
Yeah.
football player. And,
Back on topic. Sanborn Field.
yeah.
The three of us right here were on Corrigan's last championship baseball team.
Is that right?
Yep, in Sanborn, Sanborn Field. If, in the fall, a cold night, and Fred talking about the ball bouncing, leather ball, cold night, grass. Sometimes that puppy was hard to hold on to. There wasn't any stickum or anything like that. You had to make sure you hold it.
Some of those leather balls would get slippery.
Yep.
Get slippery. Yeah.
Yeah, they would get slippery. Yeah, that's
And then later on at night for summer leagues, we'd play softball down there, softball and lob ball,
Mm-hmm.
and they turned the lights on for us, and it was the field was used. That field was used in the summer.
It was basically a community center.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
There was flag football league for adults down there for a year or two.
And Dietz Carr, again, I've been mentioning his name again.
Oh, yes.
He had a semi-pro football team.
Yep.
For a couple of years.
Huh.
Yeah. got guys from all over. These guys, I call them step and a halves, because they were a step and a half slower than they thought they really were. They were playing.
Well, the best play that pops to mind, along with the one there where Jimmy ran 84 yards, was when we're playing Vacaville our junior year, and Menominee on the first, he's a star player for Vacaville, and he led Northern California in rushing and scoring, or close to it, for 2 years. They score on the first play. Guy cuts inside and goes. And he was real quick taking off, but he wasn't real fast. But the quickness got him down there. But then later on in the game, you can see it in the film. Kimball gets the ball on a fullback dive. Kimball's the best football player I ever saw at Benicia High School. And he bursts through the line, and you see 3 or 4 guys, Vacaville, coming on him, and they just converge on him. You can't see Kimball. And all of a sudden, this guy's falling down. This guy's falling down, this guy's falling down, and old Chuck is just chugging on down the field. A good scene.
Yeah.
He was probably the most powerful, but I think the best back was Terry Shue.
I agree with that, but Harry Shoup was 2 years older. That's where I see the difference.
You can't worry about how
That's
old
what
he
I
was.
see.
He
That's what I
played.
see. That's what
You
I
know?
see.
Now, there's
Well,
guys that played in college, for 7 or 8 years after they got
Yeah.
out of the service. You know, so.
By John Galvan's name 1 year, by Mike Connell's name the next year.
Mhm.
Well, you know, just listening, Bob Hathaway to me would probably be the best football player because of
He
his
was a
ability.
magician.
Yeah, position and the way he performed.
He could punt and he place kicked through the ball.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's good.
yeah, yeah.
Who do you think was the best?
Jimmy Wilson was the best.
I'm just listening.
It's all according to their own eras. That's how you can't really take it beyond that. But,
It was fun. I had fun.
Yeah.
I had fun.
As you've said many times, winning is fun. We won.
Well, we knew we were going to win. We just knew we were going to win.
Well, the best back had to be Jimmy Wilson because if he had time to look for a cameraman who's running over,
Yeah.
he had to be out. He had to outsmart everybody. To get that thing.
That was good. Yeah.
It was fun and all.
Yeah.
But my senior year, I don't know what happened. We think we only won 3 games my senior year, which
We graduated before you, that's why.
Yeah, I'll tell you.
that's why.
I'll tell
We
you.
had too many injuries.
I'll tell you why. Because first of all, you changed venues. You changed from a historical field to a brand new upstart field up on the hill, up there at the high school. And
No, we didn't play up there.
You didn't play up there?
No, we practiced.
But you went to school there.
We went to
That's what I'm
school,
saying.
yeah.
The
We were
change
the
of venue
we were the first
made all the
class
difference in the
out.
world because you see, in my view, and I went back to teach in Benicia in 1965, and that was just a couple years after, basically 4 years, I guess, after the last
61
the
was
school
less.
was and the thing is, there was nothing there. There's no spirit. It was a dog little place to go to school. There were no lawns. Everything was dreary and
Kids
gray.
refer to it as a prison with a grate.
Yeah, we call it the Rock, and there was no gym
Yeah, you
at
had
the
the
time.
police station
That wasn't
right
built
there.
in 1969, and so it was very barren. In
Yeah.
fact, I remember George when we had PE when I was teaching with him. He put a thermometer out there at the tennis courts. That's the only thing they had built out there on the fence there. And if it was 29 degrees or above, then you stripped and you went out to PE. 28 or below, then they stayed inside, did something else. But it was never below 29 degrees.
I never remember that happening when we were down here. It was colder than whatever, and put on your little blue shorts and your white t-shirt and you go out on the field.
Ready to go out there, regardless.
I don't have good memories of PE classes, frankly, at Benicia.
Well, I held them out there too.
Maybe because I had no athletic talent. That was the start, but
Well, you may not have had no athletic talent, but as I was talking with Fred about before you got here, I'm talking with you. In football, you did the job that you were required to do. You did it well. You're interior lineman, you did the job.
Yeah.
You did the job.
can't run, can't see. Yeah, I got
No, but you could
limitations.
see that guy right there enough to knock him down. That's what you did.
And you wanted to take last period PE, so that way you could dress for football. You didn't have to go into PE. So, because PE was pretty rough for the most part, and so that's why I was always taking last period PE.
That's something else to say about P was pretty rough for the most part. A lot of things that I've seen down through the years that kids got, and I don't care how this sounds, that we would have called just little owies. You know, they're through for the career. You know,
Yeah.
I mean their day is over or whatever. And in those days, honest to God, you get knocked down, you get back up. And one of the memories that I have is we're playing down here senior year, and our sideline's on this side, and the play happens, and I get hit in the gut so hard I can't breathe. I mean, I can't breathe. And we go back to huddle, and whoever calls the play, and I go up to split left hand, and just before the snap comes, I can start to take a breath, you know. But, you know, and you stayed in the game, and if you were a starter, you expected to be a starter all the time. You expected to play. And a lot of us here played the whole game. I mean, offense, defense, special teams, everything. You didn't come off for one thing because we didn't have a whole lot of players.
Well, what's special teams?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, one of my favorite, like when I first came up to the varsity in my sophomore year with Phil Gotel, and I just knew I was a star down in the junior varsity, and I, you know, come out to practice the first game, did pretty good the first game, so I decided to practice. I didn't have to show up for the first day of practice. Then he just let me. Next day I come out on that Tuesday, he didn't say nothing. He went on through practice, and I just okay. Then game time come along. I'm thinking I'm gonna go out there and play. He said, "No, you're not gonna play." He said, "You can suit up," but he said, "But then you just go down here on the other end. We're running down this end. You stay on the other end and watch. Then when we go down this end, you go back on this end and watch." And I'm sitting there. And then after the game, Barney Cargan gives me a big hug and say, "Well, did you learn anything?" I said, "Yeah, I learned not to miss practice." But they were good coaches, and they put it in your mind, you know, don't care. And then he told me, he set me down afterwards and told me, he said, "I don't care how good you are, whatever. You're on a team, and you play as a team. If the team practice, you practice." He said, "You know, you don't miss practice." He said, "Unless I tell you you can miss it." And I learned that lesson. I never missed a practice after that, and I worked hard after that because I said, this man is serious about this business, and I don't want to take no chance. If I loaf on practice, I might not play. And I just love playing, you know, because I'd walk around the school, and I just love it when my little lady friends would always say, "Oh, you're going to score us a touchdown in this game?" And I'd walk around with Ruth and all of them, and I'd just say, "Oh yeah, I'm going to get you 2 or 3 this game here," you know, just looking out there at Sanborn out the window, you know, at the field, and say, you know, we're playing at home, and we're going to do well and stuff, and, you know.
You know, that's the
And I had
difference
sort of
between
like
a
a big
back
head,
and a
but, you
lineman.
know.
Nobody ever came up to me and said, no.
Well, something
I was
about,
just a big guy at the back of the class. They didn't even know I played football.
something about a small town, and it goes along with what Jimmy was saying there. 6,000 people in town, and all of us knew a lot of people, but we didn't know everybody. And you go downtown, I know it happened to me twice. A guy comes up on a Saturday, I'm walking down First Street and says, "Nice game last night, Jim." I didn't know the guy from squat, you know, but he was one of these guys that knew you. He goes to the game, reads the Benicia Herald, you know, he follows. It's just neat stuff, different times.
Well, it was more of a community, you know, town, you know, everybody it was like one big family. I always thought, because like you said, I go downtown, go to the grocery store, and people would say, "Oh, that was a great game you guys played," you know, say, "What you gonna do next game?" You know, say, "Well, I don't know, we're gonna see, you know, but we're gonna try to win, you know, keep it going and stuff." But it was just a community. And then I remember, you know, you try to get in trouble, and the chief of police, you know, Louisiana, they take you home to your parents, you know. They didn't put you in a little jail. We had a little one.
That happened a lot to you?
Jail, you know. Yeah. No, it didn't happen to me. But I mean, I was just saying, a couple times being down at the park, you know, sit at the city park, and you know, they'd sit there and say, "Well, you know, time to be in, curfew time," and you sit there and they just take you home.
We're gonna turn
and,
on the sprinklers
you
now,
know.
you better go home.
time to go home and turn the sprinklers on.
I had some kind of a medical issue. I can't remember what it was, but it was something that kept me out of practice for a day or so. And in line with what you were saying, I was downtown, and one of the faces I recognized, but I couldn't tell you who it was, one of the men, I don't know who he was, comes up to me and starts asking me, the doctor said this, and I understand that you were out on Monday, and what's it look like, And like I was getting interviewed like a radio station or something. What do you know about my health situation? But yeah, when you play football in Benicia at that time, your life was open. You were part of the public.
That's right.
And then, away games, we win. Bud Freeman We get on that
Oh,
bus,
yeah.
he'd take us down Main
Downtown.
Street. We
Always.
honk in the horn, make the U-turn, come back.
And we holler, we are the mighty
Dragging
Panthers.
Maine in a school bus.
No, we have to roll the window down and we be yelling out,
Yeah.
we the
Oh,
mighty,
and
mighty
then the people in
Panthers."
town knew that we won.
We won, yeah.
Yeah, we did that after the Vacaville game.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, I remember that.
yeah.
Anybody remember the two St. Vincent's guys burning SV on Sanborn?
Oh, yeah, our junior year, yeah.
And then they were caught and they had to come back and apologize to the entire student body.
Yeah.
Well, you knew that was, didn't you?
I don't remember.
Hank McGraw and
Was it Hank?
Christian, so, yeah,
I don't remember who it was,
Hank
but I know
McGraw.
two of them.
was one.
My senior year.
Hank
we-
McGraw, if you're watching this, we owe you.
Yeah.
He was
And
good.
hi, Hank, it's good seeing you.
My senior year, I had a 53 Ford, and I can't remember what was coming up. I think it was a rally. I think it was a Friday, and we were having a rally or something. But all the girls were dressed in their cheerleader costumes, and they said, why don't we go over to St. Vincent's at noon? And so I had a carload of Benicia High cheerleaders and myself, and we went over to St. Vincent's, and we're cruising around St. Vincent's, and they're doing their little cheers and their little pom-poms out the window and everything. And I remember one of them came out, and I think it was Tug McGraw, and hit my car with an ice cream. Just splat!
You could throw strikes in those days too.
Yeah.
Left-handed screwball.
And what year was that?
60?
60.
Anybody have
He
a
was probably in the
favorite,
car.
a favorite play or that they were in or that they saw or something that Goodell may have said? I think Goodell at one time at halftime came in late and we're all sitting there being real quiet, and he looks around at us and says something like, "Let's go, ladies," and left. I mean, that was the halftime speech. We won the game. We weren't as motivated before as we were.
He was not a great motivational speaker.
No,
Didn't have
no,
to
but he
be.
got the message across.
We were ahead most of the time.
Yeah, most of the time we were ahead.
I remember a close encounter with Sanborn Field one time when I was playing junior varsity, probably my most embarrassing moment. It was some sort of a sweep. It was right in front of the Benicia stands, right in front of the coaches, and I was running over to try and tackle this guy. Somebody tackled him in front of me, and then I slipped and fell face down onto the grass, because kerplat. And, never touched anybody, nobody touched me, I just, collapsed. And I remember being really frustrated, thinking, this is terrible. I'm sitting there staring at the grass like that, and I started drumming my fingers a little bit. Well, apparently, everybody in the stands saw the little finger drumming thing, and that was a big thing the next day. People were telling me about that. But I was just, sort of mortified at the
Yeah.
fact that I had gone down with nothing,
Yeah,
no reason.
yeah.
We had practice there when they were having practice over in front of the bent barn in the green grass area. It was some type of drill that we were doing, and one of the lads a little bit in front of us vomited on the grass. And my turn came up to go in and get down my stance and put my right hand right down. It was vomit. All the things we remember.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
could've
Yeah,
left
you
that
didn't
one.
need to share that.
Change your stance.
Cut that one.
Edit that one out.
That's a good one.
It is a digital camera, yeah. Well, favorite stories, a couple of them was, you talk about people running from behind the stands from one part of the field to the other. And I remember one time, it was freshman college, so the next year, the 57 team was playing. And so, the team that, I don't remember who was playing, I remember Benicia was one of them, but I couldn't remember
That's
the other.
good.
Yeah.
You got 50%
And
right.
anyway, I got half it right. So anyway, they had to kick uphill. And so I was up on the right-hand side, closest on the ropes. So I said, "Oh, the kick! It's gonna." I saw it go open. I saw that nobody's gonna catch it. It's kind of hitting, it's kind of rolling down by itself. So I ran around behind to get to be one of the first guys, because I knew Benicia was gonna score. I just knew it. They're gonna go down. So I got down to the lower end. And all of a sudden I hear everybody yelling and screaming and everything else going on like that. And what happened was that the ball kind of went up there, just kind of rested, came to a stop. Nobody was running, but officials didn't blow the whistle. So Jimmy Stubblefield scooped it up
Yep.
and went on in for a touchdown. Everybody's standing around. He's running, and and I'm running right along with him, because he was. He finally scored. But I missed most of that because I didn't wait till the
What
play was
happened
over.
was, still, the ball was there, and either would go tell, or Corrigan would just,
Pick it up,
pick it up, run with it.
Yeah,
And he bent over,
learned
picked
that
it up,
later.
took off.
That's right. And the stands were screaming, he picked it up, and
Yeah,
you know, and that's memorable to me on that.
Yeah.
Too, so,
that one and that Van Bluriken play, those
Yeah.
two were pretty good.
yeah, well, there was a couple of funny ones that went on.
I was, we had Lincoln, we were playing Lincoln, and we had them backed up almost to the goal line. And I went through, and the quarterback was a real putz. It was like 50-0 or something. And he dropped the ball. And, you know, they do this drill where they throw the ball out, and you have to jump on it. They throw the ball out, and you have to jump out it. And the first one to jump on it gets to go in the locker room at the end of the day. Well, so naturally, it's to train you mentally. And so naturally, I jumped on the ball. And I was so proud of myself, I'd recovered the fumble on like the 3-yard line. I get back to the sideline, and I'm kind of beaming, you know, like, hey, I did it. And he says, why didn't you just pick it up and make a touchdown?
Yeah.
Okay. Note to self, make touchdown next time.
Part two, yeah.
One time I made what I thought was a pretty good play down here. It was on our sideline towards midfield. And George Lilly, announcer you've talked about many times when we've had conversations, he was the announcer up there. He says, the play was made by, and so of course I had to turn around and show number 30, Jim Garrett, so you can see my little ego there.
I didn't know that about you.
George Little was the
Louisa?
announcer.
Of course not.
George Little was the announcer for
Million years.
for the games.
You know, I want to ask one question. She'll edit my voice out, but you need to tell the cameraman friend, what's the bent barn? You keep talking about the bent barn and people won't know what it is.
There's pictures of it in there.
Well,
Yeah, but
we
you have to
have
tell what it is and
Well,
what
the bent barn initially, before our basketball gym was built, was the locker rooms for both the home team and the visiting team. And then in 1951, when the first gym was built, then that became more of a concession stand for us and a storage area. But it was at one time it was a locker room for both teams, and the only reason it was a locker room for both teams because the old gym, which was across the street, was too small to house two football teams, so they never used that for the locker rooms. That's what the bent barn was all about.
You have to back up a second, too. Why they called it the bent barn? In World War II, they made these things called Quonset huts. That's that kind of curvy steel stuff that was curved. And they took one of those Quonset huts and they put it on the Benicia High School field, next to the field, and that became known as the bent barn.
It was either 57 or 58, and James Marshall was playing down here in memory of the bent barn, and just one of those times when they dressed there, and they were blue and white, and they came out of the, I'm sitting up there in the stands, they came out of the dressing room on the field, and I started counting guys. They had 55 guys coming out there in blue and white. They must have brought half the student body down there, you know, to impress. Hey, so guys, he just
Kept coming. That was fun going to the bent barn and getting your hot dog and soda pop for 25 cents. Popcorn.
And the scoreboard, the way the scoreboard is run.
Yeah,
The
the
scoreboard, a
was
manual
right.
scoreboard up there.
Yeah.
They had a timer on the side of the field, who also had the gun, and he was had a little table on our side of the field, and then every time a minute went by, he'd put a little wooden placard to let the guys who were running the clock to bring it down by another minute, and that's how we had the time of the football field at the time. Of course, they had all the manual things for the scores and all, but remember that pretty vividly.
Don Lorenz did that for a while, and he told me that one time somebody from the opposing team came over to check to see if the time,
I remember that.
time was right, and it was.
Well, actually, Don Lorenz had three time clocks. He had the fast one for when we were ahead. He had the slow one for when we were
That's
behind.
pretty good Sanborn Field home
And then
court.
he had the one that was right on for people who were checking them.
Yeah, this is the one, we're right here.
I'm just kidding on that. Don was so straight arrow, he would have never liked
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah. But the guy in Rio Vista, that's where I learned it from. Yeah. So they did have that. Fast button, slow button. And finally, in the beginning, Sanborn Field, there's some early pictures, but Ben Sherrill probably has them, of showing Joe Bernard and some of the others first year. That field was a dirt field too, back in the day. And So it got to be pretty sloshy in inclement weather as well.
Well, how about we finish up then on talking about the three coaches who were the founding athletic fathers of town?
Yeah, what's your thought about the coaches? That would be a good finish.
Well, if they had a program here in Benicia where you could name saints, those three guys were saints. Phil Gotel came here in 1947. He had taught up in Mariposa just for a year after he got out of the service, and this is the only job he ever had in terms of being a football coach, other than that one up there. He had many offers over the years to go up in the ranks, either junior college or college, and he just turned them all down. And we're at least I am. I'm very grateful for that. And Barney Corrigan came the next year, 1948. He had taught a couple places. He had taught down in, he actually taught up in Truckee and down in Atwater before coming to Benicia, and obviously made his mark here. George Drolette came here at the behest of Phil Gotel. They knew each other while they were both going to San Francisco State early in the day, and Phil went into the service earlier on, and George went in the service when World War II started and fought in the Pacific Campaign. Came out, finished his college, and then 1948 joined us here. And that's the only job he ever had. And he coached football, basketball, tennis. George did. Barney had football. He coached the season D's in basketball and had varsity baseball. And Phil, football, basketball, and track. So the three of them were the coaches for all the sports we had at the time. And during our era, actually the era started in 1947 with Phil, and basically ended in 1964, I believe. You said you only won 2 games in 1962? I won 0 in 1965, but I did tie one. So I wasn't the worst coach. Close, but not then. And so I took Phil's place, and then a year after the others. But those three guys, if I were to name the 5 most influential people in my life, I'd name my mom, my dad, and those 3 guys.
I agree. Phil Gotel gave me confidence. He instilled confidence in myself. And Barney, they both have passed on. But today I can hear Barney. If I get in a difficult situation where what do I do? And I can hear Barney, come on, Haderman, you can do it. You can do it. And he just right behind you, because he would get behind you, and you're doing push-ups or pull-ups or something. He says, you can do 5 more. You can do 5 more. Always pushing you, and you did it. And those 2 guys are standouts in my life.
Well, I loved all of them, and I didn't know it at the time, but I learned through time. And when I was a sophomore on the varsity baseball team, we're playing a away game, and it's about the 5th inning, and we hadn't gotten a hit. I get the first hit, it's a single. He yanks me out of the game and puts in somebody else. He and I have a conversation as to who should be playing and who should not be playing, and he informs me that I'm no longer on the team. Just enjoy the bus ride back to Benicia. So you go on the bus ride back to Benicia, and he had a little bit of a temper that occasionally, got a little loose.
Think about it, he's Irish.
Yeah, a little bit. And I know to this day he regretted doing that. He just got a little angry, got a little hot, whatever. And he did so much to help me. Gotel did so much to help me. They all did little things that a lot of people don't know or see about now. When my father died, he died the day of the last baseball game my senior year, and it was after it was the alumni game. And in a game, I broke Catcher's jaw in 2 places, knocked out 4 teeth. And nobody understood that my dad was in the hospital and he died that night. And I was always taught, hey, base pass belongs to the runner, he's blocking the plate, boom. And I wasn't thinking baseball, I was just thinking, I got whatever it is. But at the funeral services, the Block B, of which Gotel and Corrigan and Gillette were all the leaders, they had sent flowers, the student body had sent flowers. Just all kinds of little things like that, opening doors. My first Cal football game, Gotel and Corrigan took Charles Kimball, Mike Wentworth, and me to that game. My wife and I have had 4 season tickets to Cal football games now for a long, long time. And whenever we take, I've taken a number of my former students, number of former players to games. It's carrying on. It's that tradition. It's that passing the torch, however you want to say it. But they instilled that in us. They were good guys.
Yeah, well, I enjoyed both of them, all three of them, and then plus Coach Frank Danes when I was a freshman. He was one of my inspirations too, because when I came up, I didn't really know too much about football because I was always playing baseball and running track. And then he taught me a little bit ins and out about the game, and he said, well, you learn to do this and that. He said, I'm going to talk to Phil. He said, he'll watch you, and, and if you do well, we'll get you up there on that varsity. I said, well, maybe I might be ready. And he said, oh, you can be ready. But I really loved all four of them, and then Phil Romer, too, with the junior varsity. He was a line coach, too, and, he would get in and push, like Fred said. He would, sometimes I'd get lazy out there on doing the push-ups and stuff like that, and he'd come by there, puts his hand on my rear end and say, I don't feel you moving.
Yeah.
I don't feel you moving. You got to get up there, get that arm up, and I started moving, and they instilled a lot of confidence in me and made me aware, no care how good you can be better, but you got to be in your personality too, and you got to be a team player, and that I always learned. And then when I started coaching and baseball, and when my kids were growing up and stuff, and that's what I always try to teach the kids, what I learned from them. You have to have a team, be teamwork, no one player. And then, like Jim said, everybody played on our team regardless who, and I tried to do the same thing because I always reflect about what I was taught. Let everybody play, then that way you keep everybody happy, keep all the parents happy and everything. And I really enjoyed my days at Sanborn, because even when I passed by the other day, I look at it and I sit there for a minute and just think about, I can see myself as a little kid sneaking in, playing flag football or playing baseball with all the kids in Benicia and stuff, like I said, because it was like a family. And I really enjoyed the coaches and stuff and everybody there.
The other thing I'd like to mention is John Galvan. John and I grew up in the neighborhood in West Manor, and John taught me how to throw a football. John taught me how to catch a football. John taught me how to throw a baseball, catch a baseball, and I don't know if he taught me how to hit, because I never could hit.
There's only so much a guy could do.
There's so much you guys can
But
do.
John taught me those things, and I appreciate that.
Thank you. One final thing about, we talked about them being saints. Jim and I in particular, we both came back to school, to Benicia. We taught Benicia High School. I became a school administrator there for a long time. And I had the pleasure and the honor of being, not only, them being my mentor when I was growing up, but becoming a colleague. And in the case of George Jolette, became my best friend for many, many years until he unfortunately passed away back in 1985. But they were more than just your coaches. They were literally, as Jimmy was saying, part of the family. And I, again, drew so much of me today is because of the way they presented things as they were, how to do this and how to do that. I remember one particular thing with Phil Gotel. I had just been replaced as the football coach. Only had been there 1 year, but then I was given the baseball job because Barney stepped down, and I became the varsity baseball coach then. This is 1966. And Phil was the vice principal, and he was going to become the principal the following year. And I remember walking out of the door right after that little session. He says, John, says, we both have something to prove. He says, we have people here that are making decisions that in a couple, 3 years aren't going to be here.
Mm-hmm.
But you and I will be here. So our job is to do what we have to do to get through that time so that we then become the inspiration for all the others that remain. Because I'm not going anywhere, and I don't think you are either, and I didn't, as it turns out. That was 30 some odd years later I retired. But things like that, putting that pat on the back and arm around your shoulder and saying, we can do this. We just got to work it every day.
On that line, I had in 27 years at the high school, I had 10 principals. Okay, that's just a joke. I mean, it's ridiculous. And the number of football coaches from 47 through 64, so there were like five or
Well,
six.
there's one head coach.
I mean, yeah, one head coach. And since that time, there's been, and you can check on it because I have. There's been like 100. I'm not being facetious. 100 football coaches. I mean, you cannot establish any tradition
Yeah.
that way. You can't look. You know, you played for me, and your son's going to play for me too. I mean,
Right.
it's just not there.
It's not there, right?
Yeah. So that was pretty much it.
Sanborn Field was so important to me from my earliest memories through high school that I really think I'd be a very different person if I hadn't lived right next to Sanborn Field and if I hadn't had those coaches. I mean, it was that big of a factor in my life.
Yeah, ditto, I agree.